since 2003. This is the Sports Source, East Tennessee's #1 sports talk show.
Presented by Pipe Wrench, and by Junk Be Gone, and by the Garza Law Firm.
With your host, John Pennington. The Sports Source starts now.
Interesting day. About 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock last night. One, we're going to be talking about Tennessee's bowl outlook. Most people think it's orange. There's a slim chance of sugar. We'll talk about that and what's going to happen with the playoffs, etc. We're also going to talk about the fact that Alex Golesh, Tennessee offensive coordinator, who was the best offense in the country this year, he is now off. He is going to be the head coach at the University of South Florida. What does that mean for the bowl game? What does that mean moving forward? Does he take people with him, etc., etc.? And then we've got Mark Pancratz back with us to talk basketball. So we're diving into basketball season today, and we also have a special Christmas gift we're giving here on the show a little bit later. So it should be a full, packed show, 90 minutes. And yes, let me go ahead and say this. I realize the college football playoff show starts at noon on ESPN, so I will give you an excused absence if some of you want to flip away, but I will say this. Once you see the announcement over there, we're going to be talking about it here too, so we'll have the immediate announcement if you want to stick with us from a Tennessee perspective. But if you do go over there, flip right back and get our breakdown of what's going on. Come on back and do that. Let's get into this show. First segment brought to you by Junk Be Gone. As the Christmas season is here, we've got, hang on one second, sounds like my mic is off. Is that what I'm being told? Okay, it looks like there's a battery issue with this mic for some reason. I apologize. It's giving me the mute signal. Now it's saying off. Now I'm turning it back on. This is very professional. Welcome to television in the 21st century. They got me now? Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed my pantomime from earlier. God, love television. Junk Be Gone. Now that the Christmas season is here, that means boxes and packages and papers are going to be in your house. It means you're going to have new stuff to replace old stuff. Well, when the holiday is over, call Junk Be Gone to make your life easier. Have them carry off all the old boxes and packages and papers and the old stuff that's been replaced. Junk Be Gone can do it for you. I use them every year. We thank them for being the name sponsor on our studio. Let's take a look at the studio now. Let's see if the cameras work. Hey! You can at least see us. Thanks to them for helping to put this whole thing together. Thanks to you for being here today. In case you didn't hear me off the top, we got a lot to talk about. Right over here, Jimmy Himes from 99.1, The Sports Animal. Jimmy, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Former Virginia Tech coach, former Virginia Tech player, longtime Tennessee fan, Justin Hamilton right here. Justin, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Right over here, Josh Ward. Everybody's mic working. That's good. Josh Ward from 99.1 The Sports Animal. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Chuck Cavaliers, longtime member of this panel. Appreciate you for being here. Ah, there you go. See, now that's just a button I have that I can clip your audio at any time. All right.
And you use it.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to mention it here as I did over there, whether you heard it or not. Alex Golesh departing Tennessee to go be the head coach at South Florida. We'll talk later. I don't want to put it off the top because we've got bowl stuff to discuss, and obviously that's the #1 story of the day, but we will get back into the Alex Golesh situation and what that means for Tennessee in the short term and in the long term. That said, let's start with the bowl outlook, and we can go ahead and put up the graphic if we've got it. With Southern Cal losing on Friday night, it really worked out well for Tennessee. It's interesting how bad the South Carolina loss looks now, because with USC's loss, you would have been in. If you'd beaten South Carolina, and maybe if you'd only lost closely, you'd have still been in over Iowa State. But it looks like right now, most of us expect, I think, Georgia to still be in at #1, Michigan at #2, TCU, I think they've earned it at #3. Most people think they're still in. But Ohio State, after getting their rumps kicked at home last week, they got to sit home and just were rewarded for it. It looks like they're going to jump into the playoffs, and we'll discuss how they'll be seeded here in a second. Rose Bowl, that's going to be Utah versus Penn State. Sugar Bowl looks to be Alabama versus Kansas State because Alabama's the highest rated SEC team, and that's how the SEC divvies up their bowls. It'll be the highest rated non-playoff team to the Sugar. Alabama was one slot ahead of Tennessee last week, so we'll put Alabama versus Kansas State in the Sugar. That means Tennessee versus Clemson in the Orange Bowl. Either of those two would be a great reward for a good season. You just didn't want to go play Tulane in the Cotton, and that's what USC is getting stuck with most likely. Now, there is a slight chance. Put the graphic back up, please, if we can. That orange thing at the bottom, I still had to read that for folks at home. Tennessee could still land the Sugar Bowl if the committee jumps Alabama into the playoff. If they penalize TCU, or if they say Alabama has a better strength of schedule than Ohio State and we're going to change this all at the end, if Alabama goes to the playoff, then you're the highest rated non-playoff SEC team and you would get the Sugar Bowl. The other way is if the committee looks at Georgia's big win yesterday over LSU and says, okay, this is an excuse to get Tennessee over. They've taken heat this week, not just from Vol fans. Nationally, people have said, what are you doing here? If they say, all right, Tennessee lost to Georgia, Bama didn't, let's use that as our escape clause. We'll say Tennessee's loss to Georgia looks even better now. They bumped ahead of Alabama. Tennessee jumps Alabama. Tennessee goes to the Sugar, Alabama to the Orange. Gentlemen, I've laid it out. You guys can tell me if you agree or disagree. 90% chance Orange, 10% chance of one of those other things kicking you to the Sugar, and those four teams in the playoffs. I'll let you take it from there because your mics are working. Go.
I like the Orange Bowl for Tennessee. I think you laid it out perfectly. I think that's what's going to happen. The committee took flack for putting Alabama ahead of Tennessee. Think how much flack they'll have if they flip-flop it. So they'll catch just as much if they do that. You can make certainly a strong argument for Tennessee, but I think they'll end up Alabama Sugar Bowl, Tennessee Orange Bowl, and I feel pretty comfortable that's what they're going to do. It's hard to read their minds,
Right.
but I think that's what they're going to do.
I don't know. I mean, we've seen that this is a season where you can try to predict it, and it seems so crystal clear, and then at the very last week or the last 2 weeks, excuse me, it can go on its head. And I think Tennessee, I agree with the playoff teams that you had up there. I think Tennessee will probably end up in the Orange Bowl. I would like to see that matchup against Clemson if both teams are playing full rosters. But
That's a huge question.
That is a huge question. But it's not unheard of for the committee to take two teams that did not play yesterday and decide that one of them should jump the other. So who knows what could happen, but it's two really good bowl possibilities for Tennessee.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I think Orange is the most likely for Tennessee, and I think it's maybe the most intriguing outside the playoff for Tennessee fans. The idea of going up against Clemson. They have a good roster. They've been one of the top programs in college football for quite a while. You have the Dabo Swinney aspect. They've battled on the recruiting trail. And again, opt-out conversations are still to be had, but I think it could be a really good matchup.
Yeah, I think everything fell into place. I would almost be shocked if it's not the Orange, to tell you the truth, at this point. And I think to me, it's really tough after you haven't moved up much, really, when you don't play your Heisman Trophy candidate quarterbacks out, Hendon Hooker. There's several factors there that, to me, the committee could say, we'll just keep them the way they are. And, I think the question is, what do you do with Ohio State? You can get to that later, but I think that's the question.
Let's get to it now. I think it's going to be, and it appears most people think it's going to be, Georgia and Michigan are still where they are. TCU has proven it and earned it. That team, to me, deserves it. If they get knocked out, I think that will be the biggest travesty in the playoffs history.
Yeah.
They've earned it, okay? And what's funny is for all the people around here who've knocked them all year, they are so similar to the 98 Tennessee team, it's not even funny. People keep saying, well, they have to come from behind. Do you remember Syracuse, Florida, Arkansas, Mississippi State? Well, nobody believes in them. Do you remember how no one believed in Tennessee and kept thinking you're going to lose? Well, they were down 18 against Kansas State. Do you remember 21-3 against Arkansas? Tennessee fans should be looking at TCU and have your problem with Ohio State, not with TCU. But I think they're in it, and I think they'll keep them at 3. You said it before, and I'll let you say it here. There's a reason Ohio State will probably get it over the other two.
Yeah, it's the one loss. In this particular season, that's the one mark of denotation where we can say, or line of demarcation, where we can say that separates the teams. This year, you can look at it and say, would this team be favored? Would that team be favored? Who knows?
I think it was the committee chairman, guys, that said Ohio State has played 46 and a half excellent quarters of football. I don't know that I agree with that, but that's one thing they're saying. TCU, I think they're going to look at it and say they're still undefeated in regulation. That it had to go to overtime before they lost. So
Well, they lost. They got to a championship game, so you'd be penalizing them for that, which you're doing to Southern Cal. But they lost to a top 10 team they'd already beaten in overtime. I don't think
a
they're gonna-
championship game.
In a championship. So,
Yeah.
so to me, they're in. The question is it Ohio State that's in? And do they put Ohio State at 4 to keep the rematch
Yes.
of Ohio State and
Yes.
Michigan in the championship
Yes.
game, so it's not a guarantee? Or do they put Ohio State to 3? I've got friends in Columbus from when I lived up there, and they're like, we're going to be the 3 seed and get that rematch right off the bat. And I'm like, I don't think you are. We'll see. But do you guys
TV's
think?
probably interested in a rematch in the semifinal. If you can get Ohio State and Michigan to play again, because they know that you'll have people watching that game.
yeah.
What do you think they're going to do?
I think they'll leave Ohio State at number 4. Here's the other thing about Ohio State, and I think you're right about the one loss. I think that is the line of demarcation.
It's easy.
They've beaten 2 teams that won at least 8 games this year. That's it.
Yeah.
They have not had a hard schedule. So 46 and a half, good quarter?
Yeah.
Yeah, against whom?
Well, that's the whole
Yeah,
point.
you would hope so.
And it wasn't. I don't guess they're counting what the Northwestern game and the wind, or maybe no, they're counting Michigan, the way they fell apart in the second half against Michigan.
And see, the problem is it's a little like the basketball committee in March we always talk about. They will say, well, this is what we're looking at and this criteria matters. Well, they're saying that based on we're trying to split these 2 teams.
Right.
And then people will come back and say, well, you didn't apply it over here. It's like, yeah, over here
Right.
we were applying this. This was the difference between these 2 teams. It doesn't play evenly across the board, and I think that's what frustrates people. Look, I thought the BCS was fine. I thought the computer was fine, and the BCS for the 8th year in a row would have still been fine.
This would be a good
would have been-
BCS year.
It would have
Yeah.
been Georgia, Michigan.
Yeah.
Done. All right. When we come back, what is the, well, let's go ahead and show you, as a matter of fact, what we got coming up before I tell you what we do in the next segment. We got the value of the win in the Bahamas for the basketball team. Mark Pankrat's back with us. We're going to talk about that. The basketball strengths and weaknesses for this team. Fallout from the Alex Golesh departure. Instant reaction to the playoffs and bowl bids as soon as they come down. And much, much more. Now, here's what we've got coming up in the next segment. What is the job of the committee, as I just talked about? Why is Alabama ranked ahead of Tennessee? Let's discuss next on the Sports Source.
I just hear those sleigh bells jingling, ring ting a tingling too. Come on, it's lovely weather, stay right together with you. Outside the snow is falling and friends are calling you.